We are here as the Kansas City Chiefs have released their initial 53-man roster, and we're going to dive in position by position and get a little bit deeper and analyze every position group with the Kansas City Chiefs. But before we get into that, please be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel, as I'm going to keep you up to date on anything Kansas City Chief related that you do not want to miss out on. Without further ado, we got a lot to talk about, so let's get right into it. Now, before we get too deep into this initial 53-man roster for the Kansas City Chiefs, I do want to let a note out that just because this is their initial 53-man roster right now, doesn't mean it will be the same tomorrow. There have been a lot of cuts, as everyone knows. There could be more trade action, and there could be a lot of players Kansas City could have their eyes out for. So, very likely that this could change tomorrow, but I will have you covered. And in the first position group we're going to dive right into is the quarterback room. And honestly, it's our first surprise of the day. Honestly, we didn't really think it's that much of a surprise now because we felt it would lean this way. But Kansas City is going to start the season off, at least at the moment, with 3 quarterbacks. And I mean, I get it, but I don't, because why do the Kansas City Chiefs need 3 quarterbacks on their roster? Now, if we're going to look at it as a coaching and player personnel aspect, I completely understand it, because you still want to keep that veteran presence in Chad Henne there just in case something happens to Mahomes. We're going to knock on wood because I keep saying it and I do not need it to happen. God forbid it happens. But you would have a veteran presence who can sub in for a game or two, and then you have this young gun in Shane Buechele, who is a raw talent, has a lot of learning to do, but at the end of the day, you could tell Andy Reid and Brett Veach want him to be the long-term backup quarterback. And in that case, they felt like he wasn't going to be available to get on the practice squad, which is very likely he wasn't going to be, because last year when they released, not even when they released him, when he was on the practice squad, Arizona came chirping and tried to snap him out their grasp, and then they had to move him on the active roster. Now, a lot of people are preaching, and I get this too, how come we just don't move on from Henne and just run with Mahomes and Buechele? Just for the same aspects I mentioned, Buechele is not, he doesn't look like he's ready to be a backup quarterback yet. Now, in the future, I can see it, but we saw a lot of inconsistency in the preseason, but you saw a lot of good too, which wanted Reid to keep him on this squad and on the active roster. I get it completely. Why is Kansas City running with 3 quarterbacks? I know it doesn't make sense, but when you like a guy, you're going to fight to try to keep him on this roster, and that's exactly what Buechele did. He proved enough to be on this roster, and he proved a lot that they want him to be the long-term quarterback. So give him another year to learn. Unless something changes within the week, it looks like Kansas City's going to run with 3 quarterbacks. Now let's dissect this running back room a little more, and I'm going to add Mike Burton in there because running back and fullback, they're not the same thing, but they take handoffs behind the line. So I'm going to consider him in the same group, but not much change there either. We didn't know whether Kansas City was going to go with 3 or 4 running backs. Well, they decided 4, and Jerrion Ealy, we all knew he was going to be the odd man out, but at the end of the day, I think he will be on the Kansas City Chiefs practice squad unless he is claimed, which I don't believe, but you never know in today's day what happens around the NFL. But Kansas City's going to be running with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Jerick McKinnon, Isaiah Pacheco, and Ronald Jones. We mention it time in and time out, specifically on this channel too, is this is a very deep group. There is potential there. There is talent. There's not much production. So one of these 4 guys this year, I don't know who. I know everyone's favorite is Isaiah Pacheco, that grown man who's going to have the production this year. But I just need someone to have consistency throughout the season, and I would be fine with this running back group, even if it's a running back by committee, which I see it moving forward too. Now, let's talk about the guy who everyone thought was on his way out, and then he had a solid preseason game against the Packers, and Andy Reid spoke a little about it too, saying, hey, it took him a little while to grasp this offense, but you could tell he finally got it turning, and it looked like things were clicking, and once he gets full speed, he might be someone very valuable in this offense, which got me thinking a lot too, because I was like, maybe he makes the initial 53, but maybe he's still a trade bait or a trade target, which could be highly likely too. Or if Kansas City's going to view one of these running backs that got released, which there's quite a few good ones too, and young guys too, where I might prefer over a Ronald Jones, that maybe he was waiting to see how that market shapes up to where, hey, we can add someone and then we can part ways with Ronald Jones. Or maybe he does really view Ronald Jones as strongly to where he can be a real good asset in this running game. That I don't know of. I know when Ronald Jones first got signed into Kansas City, everybody had high expectations where he was going to be the number one guy. He was going to unseat Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and he was going to be your new running back one in Kansas City. I don't know if that's likely now either, and I don't know if Clyde Edwards-Helaire can be your solid number one either. I do see KC running by a running back committee where they're going to have different rotations and forms, which might be for the best too, because the defense will never know what hit them too. You can have Clyde Edwards out there in a series and then bring in Isaiah Pacheco, and then on third down, throw screens to Jerick McKinnon, and then Ronald Jones, do with him what you might. He is a powerful runner. He is fast too. If he controls his fumbling issues that he's had in the past, again, this is a very talented running back group with potential. They haven't showed the production. I'm hoping they do. Maybe in another video I will dive in on these running backs that have been released too, because there are quite a few, and there is very interesting names out there that I would be eager to see Kansas City go for, but that means one of these guys would be the odd man out. So that might be a fun video. This running back group is very interesting, but Kansas City is going to run with 4 going into week 1. And now you're probably shocker of the day, at least your shocking position of the day in the wide receiver group for the Kansas City Chiefs is Kansas City decides to run with 5 wide receivers. They wanted them to get that extra running back and that extra quarterback, and they didn't go with the wide receiver 6, at least for the moment. And it's funny to think about it. All preseason, we've been watching, like, who's going to claim that wide receiver 6 spot. Is it going to be Fountain? Is it going to be Gordon? Is it going to be Powell? Maybe even Coleman can make a presence in the wide receiver game. It's none of them. They decided, hey, we're running with 5 wide receivers. And you know what? I can understand it. Like, if you have a different position of need on the team that they felt that they couldn't claim or get on the practice squad, and that they think their talent needs to be on this team, hey, like, invest in that position and move forward too. And like I mentioned earlier, was those names I mentioned in Powell and Coleman, and I'm already drawing a blank. Powell, Coleman, Gordon, and Fountain. Like, they were fighting for a wide receiver 6 spot. But if they didn't produce or perform in preseason the way that the coaches wanted to and wanted to see, I mean, there you go. That basically says everything on why they didn't make the team. Now, I guarantee you, if one of them showed out in training camp or in the preseason, they would be on this team. But none of them really stepped up like that to where Coach Reed, Brett Veach was going to be like, no, we need a wide receiver 6. The one who really showed up was Watson, and he claimed a wide receiver 5 spot, which a lot of us, including myself, didn't even think he was going to make the team and he would be a practice squad guy. Now he looks like a guy that, hey, he's going to produce on Sunday, and he's going to have one play every Sunday. We're going to be like, man, we got to steal in this guy. So it's going to be interesting to see moving forward. Moving to the Josh Gordon thing, I know a lot of people are disappointed, including myself, but I'm not disappointed in he got cut. I'm mostly disappointed in that he didn't live up to the production and potential that we wanted in this KC offense. And as including myself, we thought going into this offseason, hey, he gets a whole year or whole offseason to learn this playbook, and then he will be good and he will be a force to be reckoned with in this offense. And that just didn't happen. You didn't really see him produce in training camp, not at all in preseason. I don't even know if he had one catch or maybe just one. But that's not what's going to get you on this team. And Reed did mention that, hey, if we can get him back, I'd love to get him back. Now, if you read in between the lines, I wouldn't like to think that mostly means if we can get him on the practice squad again, yeah, let's do it. But I think they would mostly focus on guys to get on the practice squad like a Fountain, a Powell, and a Coleman. Coleman was in practice today. So I believe that he's going to make the practice squad. I don't think anyone will claim him. Again, who knows though. The only one I'd be really concerned that won't be back with the Kansas City Chiefs is Fountain. He has production. He did make the active roster last year with Kansas City. It's just how highly sought is he viewed around the league. We're going to find out in the next couple days or tomorrow if he's claimed off waivers. If not, he'll make this practice squad moving forward. But the main takeaway from this is that Kansas City is going to run with 5 wide receivers. Maybe they have their eyes on a guy that just got released. Maybe already a potential free agent out there. I know a lot of people are claiming Odell Beckham. I think he's still got a lot of recovery to go. I know they were interested in it last year for trade, but I don't know if he'll be ready by the October or even November point. So to sign him right now and to kind of free up a free agent spot for him doesn't really make no sense. But yeah, it's interesting to see how this wide receiver group is going to shake up. You know, it's my favorite position to watch. But we're moving forward with 5 of them. As we talk a little bit about this tight end room, they're going to run with 3 at the moment. I wanted to feel like it was 4. I might be missing a name, but it's the 3 guys we know off the top of our head. It's Travis Kelce, Jody Fortson, and Noah Gray. If I'm missing one, please let me know in the comments down below, because I probably am. But we're going to dive right into the injury front on it, because this is where the injuries are stacked, is in this group. And Matt Bushman, he will be out for the year. He was put on the injury designation, but he was waived too. So that's unfortunate, but we all knew when he broke his clavicle that was probably the writing on the wall, because he might have had a chance to make your 4th tight end after the Blake Bell injury too, which I will dive in here shortly. He had a very explosive game. He came onto the scene, and not a lot of us knew about him. If you did, kudos to you, because I definitely didn't, and he looked very explosive. He looked really good, and it was sad to see it go down that way, but rooting for him next year to make this roster, because, hey, this tight end group can always use the talent. Now let's dive right into Blake Bell. And Blake Bell, we know the injury he is going with, but the thing we were really looking for is what kind of IR is Kansas City going to put him on? Would it be a full year, or will he be out the 4 to 6 weeks? And I want to say it's that range too. And Casey played it smart too. They released Elijah Lee, and then they put, I think that's how it works. Now I might have to correct myself. They released Elijah Lee, and then they put Blake Bell on the initial 53 man, which means that he will only be out the 4 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks. I got to get corrected on that too. So once they put him on IR, they will bring Elijah Lee back. Now, if Kansas City didn't put Blake Bell on the initial 53, he would be out for the year. So Kansas City believes they will get Blake Bell back sooner rather than later, at least at some point during the 2022 season, which is a positive, because he is our best run blocker, and he is our best direct snap under center for Mahomes when we need that 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1 play. But Mike Burton does it very well too. So, well, he takes the handoffs very well. So I'm not too concerned with losing that. But definitely in the running game, Blake Bell has proven his asset on this team. And it's great to see that we will get him at some point this year. We just don't know when. But very smart move by Kansas City to release a player, put Blake Bell on injured reserve, and then bring that player back, which we will dive into a little bit more next. Now we're going to be talking about the big men, the O-line. And honestly, your first initial thought is that they're running kind of slim. I won't go too much in depth with it. I will mention that Austin Ryder was released. I know a lot of people aren't really fan favorites of him, but I do believe he was a solid depth center. Definitely, if something ever happens to Creed Humphrey, if he gets injured, it's like at least you know someone who knows the system. I do believe they'll try to get him back on the practice squad, but again, they tried that last year, and then I think he was signed with the Dolphins for a short period of time, and then he found his way back to Kansas City. So that's not a given either that he will be back with Kansas City. But your initial reaction is that this line is very slim. Yes, your starters are set, and they are solid, and they will protect Mahomes, and they will create a very good run game too. But when you peel that skin back, it's just like, okay, we're kind of desperate for depth at the O-line position. And you saw it in the preseason too. When the second stringers and when the third string start playing, it's like Chad Henne, Bouchel, and Chrome, they were running for their lives. And it was just ugly football when the backups were playing. And if Casey was to make an acquisition or a trade, I wouldn't be surprised if it's depth on this O-line, because last thing you want is an injury to happen on this line, and then you're basically screwed because you don't have any protection for Mahomes. So we know how much Veach really, admires having a good O-line, because he addressed it right after the Super Bowl when he basically saw Mahomes get murdered all game. I doubt he will let that happen again. So keep your eyes out in the next few days, because I believe Kansas City somehow, some way will add some O-line depth. It might not be a big presence, but any depth whatsoever in the future will definitely help. Now time to flip the script, and we're going to go on the defensive side of the ball, and we're going to focus on the defensive line, and we're going to focus on the inside with the defensive tackles. And it looks like they're going to run with Jones, Noddy, and Saunders. It's so great to see Saunders make the team. Even though we all knew it, he was very explosive in this preseason. You could tell he was playing with a huge chip on his shoulder, and I think he's a great rotational defensive tackle that's going to make his impact. But one of the most surprising things that we saw was that they didn't keep a 4th guy. They basically said, we're going to run with these 3, and they let go Danny Shelton and Stallworth. Now, I best believe that they're going to try to get him on the practice squad, but it's unfortunate because I believe they could get Shelton back, and maybe Stallworth too. Stallworth has showed production in the preseason where I really love to see, and Danny Shelton, it was short term. We were hoping for the best, but it didn't live long, and there was a reason he was a free agent for a while too, and I think it was hard for him to make the team no matter how much Chiefs Kingdom wanted him to make the team, just because we haven't had a big run-stuffing nose tackle like that basically clog the line, and there's still a chance he can make the practice squad. But I could definitely see it being Jones, Noddy, and Saunders moving forward. So that's what the Kansas City Chiefs are going to do. Now let's focus on your edge rushers. And I guess the big need, not need, but position of value was your backups. And it looks like Kando and Herring were the ones to edge out. Ooh, I am drawing a blank. Kamara and who else? Who else? Come on, guys. Help me out. I know we on a live. We can't get there. But I'm drawing a blank. But it was great to see Kando make it. Now, a lot of people might think, hey, he doesn't have the production to be there. And I would agree, too. But we've heard time in and time out, he's raw talent. He needs to be nurtured and groomed. And in his last game, he had a sack. He does look explosive, and you can see it on the field, too. I think Kansas City's hoping for a lot with Kando, too. Now, I'm not saying, like, right away production, but I'm saying, like, hey, he's going to need to show more production than he has in the last couple years to be a potential to make this team further on too. So I definitely think this will be a make it or break it year for Kando, and see how he works out as a rotational guy. As for Herring, he's been everyone's favorite. We've seen the speed coming off the edge. We've seen how he's been translated in training camp and in preseason too. It's actually very exciting for him to make the team, at least in my eyes, because I thought he would be a practice squad guy, and for him to get that last spot is very cool to see. Honestly though, those three guys wrapped up, even with Kamara too. I don't know, I liked Kamara a lot. Like, coming out of KU, I know he's a Missouri, Kansas City guy that all Chiefs Kingdom loves to see. I hope he makes it to the practice squad. He showed good potential even with the Cowboys. He showed it last week when he got a sack too. I hope somehow, some way he can make this practice squad, because he's another guy where, again, if an injury happens, you can call him up, and I think you can get production out of him. So it's going to be exciting to see moving forward. And then you're still going to run with your guys like a Frank Clark, and then a Carlos Dunlap. He looks like he should be coming off an injury and hopefully be ready for week 1. And then, of course, you got your Furious George. Yep, that's the name we're running with apparently. He likes it, so that's what we're going with. And Mike Dana. This is another group where there is potential there, but the production needs to match it. And hopefully, entering the year 2022, that the Kansas City Chiefs, they are sack masters, and Sack Nation is on full display. Now, as we enter the linebacking core, nothing too major happened, but it's two interesting tidbits that we are going to focus on. And Jermaine Carter, the guy who was brought in from Carolina, this will be the one that will probably affect Kansas City financially more. But again, I think it needed to be done. For some reason, just watching him, I know coming into it, I was like, maybe he can be the guy to fill in that third spot. But he looks slow, and I'm glad that they kind of try to avoid that and not, repeat themselves in prior years, like with a Neiman and things like that. Because if you ran into that again, Chiefs Kingdom would be so upset seeing him try to chase down guys. And again, it's no slight to Carter, and I'm not trying to bag on him or anything like that. It's just, he just did not seem like a fit. And I'm glad KC went over trying to make the best roster instead of, hey, we are paying this guy this type of money. Even though it's nothing like crazy, but there was money tied down to him, and not to even play a snap in Kansas City is something Chiefs could have thought about. It's like, let's give it a year. They realized it just didn't fit for both sides, so it's time to move on. Now, Elijah Lee, he didn't make the initial roster either, but like I mentioned with the Blake Bell situation, he will be on this team. And for those that didn't really get most in-depth with it earlier, so basically what happened was Blake Bell, for him to be on this team and actually play this year, he would have to make the initial 53-man roster. So KC has him on the 53, and then in the coming days, they will put him on IR, which that'll be 4 to 6 weeks, and then Elijah Lee will be brought back in. So now Elijah Lee can be on the team, and Elijah Lee even mentioned, hey, don't get rid of those 44 jerseys, because I'm going to be here week 1. And Elijah Lee is very fun, and he's a very fast player too. The same with Harris, who also made this team too. Harris last week, he looked like an all-time great linebacker. You could tell he was fighting for a job, and it was exciting to see. These young linebackers moving forward, and even our starting core too. It's going to be exciting. It should be one of the most focused positions on the defense that you should be focused on when you're viewing the Kansas City Chiefs. Now we're going to close this video off with with the last position group, and it is the secondary. And nothing too crazy happened in this position group, but also it will make a lot of Chiefs Kingdom happy because I know they don't like seeing these players on the field, especially on Sundays with the starters. And the Kansas City Chiefs have waived DiCaprio Boodle and Zane Anderson. I know it seems like they have been an insurance policy for the Kansas City Chiefs, and it just didn't work out. And yeah, they were not put in good positions to succeed. But again, when you're put in a position, you got to perform your best, and that just didn't happen. And it's just another thing where it just didn't work out for both sides too. I do see both of them probably making the practice squad, but for them to be a starter on the Chiefs defense, I don't think that puts the Chiefs defense in the best position to win and stop opposing offenses too. And then the only draft pick of this year of the Kansas City Chiefs to get cut was Nazeeh Johnson. We didn't see too much out of him, so this is not surprising whatsoever either. But he'll definitely make the practice squad. I don't see no one claiming him, but maybe he can be groomed into a better safety moving forward too. We have seen that time in and time out where guys need a year or two. Like, for example, Powell in the wide receiver room was like, he was quiet year one, and even though he didn't make the team this year, you saw more action out of him. Sometimes these players need a little more time to produce. So give Nazeeh Johnson time. He will definitely be on the roster going forward and definitely on this practice squad. But that'll wrap up everything. But before I close this out, because I know I'm going to get someone who says, hey, you missed so-and-so. We ain't doing that right now. So what we going to do, I got my phone. I probably did miss so-and-so, but we're going to read off the list just so I can get everyone caught up to date to close this video off. And I'll just go off the list of everyone that was waived today so we aren't missing out on anything. Let me catch this off because it is quite a good list. Well, not good, but long, because it's not good for the people that got cut. So I ain't trying to be an asshole. We just going to get to the point. So we're going to start off with Zane Anderson, DiCaprio Budo, Mike Caliendo, Jack Cochran, Mike Dickerson, Jarian Ely, Jordan Franks, Vitalio Gurman, Nazeeh Johnson, Azur Kamara, Devin Key. Ooh, we're going to mess up on a defensive end name that I'm not even used to Kansas City, but we're going to do it. Kahindi Agini. I think I got that right, actually. Cornell Powell. And then these are the Kansas City Chiefs that were terminated the contract for vested veterans. You got Jermaine Carter, Corey Coleman, Darius Fountain, Josh Gordon, Elijah Lee, Austin Ryder, Danny Shelton, Taylor Stallworth, and then the waived following players on injury designation, and that will be Matt Bushman. And that will cap off the Kansas City Chiefs getting to their initial roster of 53 players. Chiefs Kingdom, let me know down below what caught your eye and more specific. Let's discuss it. Let's have fun with it. But before I close this out, please be sure to subscribe to the channel as I'm going to keep you up to date on anything Kansas City Chief related that you do not want to miss out on. And without further ado, I'll see y'all tomorrow. Peace.